All right.
This is Dr. Jean Watson, who's one of my dearest and closest friends. And Dr. Jean Watson is recognized as a living legend in the American Academy of Nursing, which is one of the highest honors that nurses can receive. She also was a distinguished professor and Dean Emeritus at the University of Colorado Denver College of Nursing. She also had the first endowed chair at Caring Science for about 16 years, and she founded the original Center for Human Caring in Colorado. She is the founder and director of the nonprofit Watson Caring Science Institute, and she's widely published and has received many awards, including, I think, up to 14 honorary doctorates from around the world. Her theory is human caring, and this is one of her recent books. It's a wonderful synopsis of her work that's very, very beautiful written, and I love it. So I would recommend this. But she has done a huge body of work, which has been truly remarkable. And Jean inspired me to do this, to come up with this name, Conscious Visionary Nurses on the Edge of Evolution, because Jean has always been someone who is far-reaching and has always inspired me and everyone she speaks to throw the road out in front of us. So that's what we're going to do in this next 30 minutes. And I'm going to invite Jean to talk about what her vision is of the future.
Well, thank you, Mary. It's a privilege to be with you, and you are inspiring so many people by having this program, and I hope it will go globally around the world and be something that will continue, because it gives a voice and language to nursing and the phenomena and our vision, as well as our history and our past and what we have to offer to humanity. So it's really my pleasure to just kind of speak to you about this open space that we're in. Yes. And I think this time of the pandemic is awakening us to another reality, that we are between times and space and physicality. And I think we're moving much more into what I might think of as non-physical phenomena and connectedness with that unitary field of nature and all the sacred dimensions of our life and our existence, to where we actually can be in touch with a higher level. I think right now there's a lot of discussion in the more evolved communities, I think, about this portal that we're kind of moving into a higher level of vibration for humanity, to where we will have this energy vibrations to heal ourselves, to really come to another place of being in right relation and calling upon all the spirits and angels and miracles that we know we've been experiencing and nurses experience all the time. And I think it's also this time where the veil is very thin between our ancestors and those who've come before us. And even I've heard some visionary speakers at the Institute of Noetic Science talk about how the ones that have not come yet, they're waiting to come. They're waiting to see what we do. They're waiting to see how we welcome them into this world. Are we preparing for them to come? And they're teaching us about what we have to do. So those spirits that haven't come, like that sacred spiritual midwifery, this midwifing of the next generation is to come, and they're already kind of communicating with us, those that are in the higher. That needs to happen for us to come to this new world, to a higher level of evolution for humanity. Just yesterday, I was doing some thinking about some of our courses that we've been offering, the Caritas Coach Educational Program. Right. And of course, we've always wanted to do on-site as well as online as a combination. But because of the pandemic, we really have to explore new ways of communicating. And the whole notion of the ethics of face that I've written about has entirely new meaning, because now, I draw up on Levinas, where he talks about how do we sustain our humanity at this point in human history. We do it through the face-to-face connection. Right. But the irony and the paradox that we can't be physically face-to-face, but now I'm here with you face-to-face. And so we are still connecting at that consciousness level. So we're still connecting minds and connecting us. And one of the things that I was reading myself about what I've written before, which surprised me, where I was actually quoting Leibniz, who is a German philosopher, and in the 19th century, he said that in the future there would be this community of minds, and that this internal network for this direction has been evolving in the human consciousness as part of the evolution of our species. And this virtual reality itself has been traced back to hieroglyphics, to the petroglyphs, and to writing on the papyrus, and is evident in modern day inventions and so forth. And he goes on to talk about the metaphysics of virtual reality is really coming upon us now. It's an evolution and a revolution. And it also links back to our origins of Nightingale being a mystic and a healer and communicated with God and spirits and other dimensions. And also, nursing is a calling. It's like we're led to be here. And look at the sacrifice and the human service of self that nurses have chosen for whatever reason at this time to be in this position to serve humanity at a time of great crisis is revealing and putting a spotlight on what nurses have done across time. But now it's into this caring and healing role and this human caring at a very deep level that we can't even explain or understand. But it also ties back to Martha Rogers, who was a visionary nurse scientist herself, with this whole theory of unitary human, that we're all energy, everything is energy. And so when we capture that and allow ourselves to vibrate at this higher level of consciousness, we literally can connect with that infinite field of universal love that I talk about with Levinas. And also it opens us up to what I love, this notion of Teilhard Chardin. He says we have evolved as much as we're going to evolve biologically in the human species. The next evolution of humankind is the evolution of human consciousness. And as we evolve in our consciousness, we are actually closer to that, what he called the mega point, being closer to God, or that universal infinite field of love. God is love. And so all of these converging history, philosopher, theologians, ethicists, people who study ethics, they're all kind of converging now with this new vision of what we are evolving to, a new form of humanity. And that has implications, of course, for nursing. Cool. Because we have always been there behind the scenes in that caring and loving, compassionate service to humanity. But now, as we evolve in our own consciousness, as nurses evolve, that's our work. We can be the subtle, but also the macro as well as the micro environment in this energetic field. And we become this Caritas field of caring and love, which gives permission for people to draw upon, help them to put in right relations so they can draw upon their own inner healing. So we're not doing this external traditional stuff anymore. The future is going to be there holding that sacred space for people to help heal themselves and help find the skills and the knowledge and the practices that allow for that. And of course, your work with the artistry of our humanity, the artistry of connecting with that expressive, non-physical dimension that we don't even know, to get outside of our head and the ego and let soul and spirit source speak through us. Then we start having healing because we come back into right relationship.
Exactly.
The great. So I'm kind of far out, as you know.
Great. Well, I love the idea of us being able to evolve in our consciousness, to where we'll have the potential to heal ourselves, because I think healing occurs at a very at a moment of transcendence.
Exactly, right. And that's transpersonal. It's transpersonal. It's beyond the ego. It's opening up to that infinite field of the unknown, opening up space for spirit, for life force to come in. And it really is, carrying science, a sacred science. It's a sacred journey that we're all on to come back into right relation with nature, with all the sacred directions of the universe and past, present. I remember years ago when I was studying Whitehead, he talked about how the eternal now, that moment, that carry moments in eternal now, the past, present, and future are all contained in that single moment. but he also speculated that in the future, the veil again would be very thin and we would be able to literally witness communication with our ancestors or those who've gone before us, or those that are yet to come, because the veil is very thin in this spirit world that's holding all of this together. It's just like quite a mystery and a miracle to be open to this, because we don't know. There's so much we don't know, and we can be open to that portal to take us to this new dimension. It's a new realm of humanity.
It is. I love the idea of opening the portal and being able to move in this moment, in this very moment, be connected with the past and also be connected with the future. And is it possible, this is just coming up for me this moment, for the future to speak to us now? And what you were saying, it's as if the future is calling us or waiting for us. Is that what you said? Waiting for us to rise in our consciousness to meet the future.
Right. There's this quote from Terry Tempest Williams, who's this beautiful writer and naturalist, and she says something about the future is watching us.
Wow.
They're watching us. I wish I had the correct quote, but it's a very beautiful, evocative comment about pay attention. The future, they're witnessing us now. Those that are yet to come are watching us. So we have to prepare the way for the next generation and the next generation in the now, because they're watching us.
I love that.
Isn't that lovely?
That's so powerful. That just resonates so deeply with me. Can you talk about that a little bit more? About that's the mystery. That's the mystery is on the other, like you said something about the veil being thin, you know, and now we're at one of those times where the portal is opening and calling us forth. And that's what I felt like this was, you know, as we speak our voices, as we rise up with visions and hope and possibilities for the future, that we are creating the container, the sacred container for the future to be born from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I heard a speaker at the Institute of Noetic Science, but I don't remember who it was, but she was very much like channeling on the stage when she was presenting. And she spoke about how the children were already talking to her about how we have to change our ways for the earth to be prepared for them. And I think it's part of that sacred circle of life. And I often use that Hildegard of Bingen and this whole notion that we all come from the spirit world, from the Native American traditions. Mm-hmm. We all come from the spirit world. We come here to be on the earth plane for a given time to fulfill our soul's purpose. And when that purpose is finished, we have to return home to the spirit world. And so this notion of we all come from the spirit world, they're waiting to arrive from the spirit world, but they're watching to see whether they want to come or who they can come to. And then we also know that you return to the spirit world when your soul's journey is finished on the earth plane. And, you know, he goes on to say, when Father Spirit calls, we have to go home. So it's, you know, this untimely deaths maybe has a new meaning when you put it into a state of life death. And our soul's journey takes us rather than us taking our soul's journey. The souls determine when they're going to come in. The spirits of these unknown are waiting to come in, but they're waiting. And there's certainly comments in the metaphysical realm here we're in that perhaps many are leaving the earth plane to prepare the next generation so they can work from another dimension to help us on the earth plane. So that's another explanatory phenomena, that we need new ways of explaining these unfathomable phenomena that cannot be explained in the traditional scientific method of the separation worldview that we've created. So now when we go into carrying science and unitary carrying science, we make it explicit. We're no longer separate. We're all connected. It's a quantum universe, and pandemic is an example, living example. Everything in the universe is connected. There is nothing you can touch that is not touching you, and we're being touched. So we have to really wake up and realize that we are part of this cosmic field of the universe.
And what I think is waking up is the collective consciousness is
Yes.
waking up right now. It's like this has created a collective awakening.
Yes, exactly. I think so. And I think nurses are on the cutting edge of this because they've always had that behind the scenes connecting way beyond just the body physical. They've always been there to touch the human soul, the human spirit of that person. The whole mind, body, spirit oneness has always been part of the value system, part of the worldview, part of the practices of what nurses have done across time. But now it takes on entirely new explanatory meaning and metaphysical meaning because we open up and really pay attention, because we're evolving to allow the energy of healing to come through us. We're not healers, but that energy of source is coming through us, or we help to potentiate it for another person to come back into right relation with their source for healing. That's what we're doing. We're holding that space for the other person to self-heal.
We're holding that space for the other person to self-heal. So they are healing from within themselves, and that potential is being activated in the world right now.
Exactly. That's what I see. And I think we have no idea of the energetic vibrations of how people will be able to go into this space in the future, even with technology. I think we'll see a new intersection between humans and technology. And, Martha Rogers talked about maybe we're going to move from humanoids to space noids.
What is that?
We'll be in this other dimension. It's pretty far out, but it's so real upon us that it's already happening. We're already in this other field. We just don't know it yet.
Right. Do you think that what came to me was really something interesting is in life and death, our soul chooses when to be born, and then our soul chooses when to take us home. And that was kind of really beautiful that I thought, so these spaceoids they could be it sounds pretty way out, but they could be the light bodies of our soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Turning to us.
Yes, possibly. Yeah. Well, and there's all this, if you really wanted to go into some of the metaphysical realm of the non-physical, that there are dimensions from other planets here on Earth now helping us. So it's not that far out. And so we're opening up to all these unknowns in a way that's really quite beautiful and exciting. So I'm like just throwing it out there, putting it out and holding that as the possibility of opening up this portal and being a part of it in some small ways that I might be able to hold the space for its emergence.
Well, what's always been so beautiful about your work, Jean, is your ability to be curious about the possibilities of all the realms of realities, the indigenous mind, dream time, the wisdom traditions, the scientific traditions.
I'm busy. I'm in a conference. I'm sorry. Hi.
And bringing all that together with your work and all the philosophers of today. Mm-hmm. And having this ability, I see this has been your genius, and to synthesize this work and translate it, sort of like the translator from the spirit world. And in ancient times, that is kind of who the medicine people were. So in a way, you are like a medicine woman of nursing. You are able to have this incredible ability to see and synthesize all these different philosophers and bring them back to us in a way that's tangible, that's meaningful for nursing. And then also you're able to visualize the future, how we can feel different reality, the realms of different realities as they emerge and as we move through the veil.
I need to close them when they're talking.
Okay. You're in Mexico. Jean's in Mexico right now.
Mexico, and the workmen come around to see if we're okay.
Oh,
So,
nice.
okay,
That's so
yeah,
nice.
sorry. Okay, go
That's
on.
okay. That's perfect. But that's been something that as a visionary. So how do you tell me a little bit more about how one of the things I feel about your work and your presence in the world as a living legend, as a philosopher, as a theorist, as a mystic, one of the things I've been able to witness is the energy of your intention and the power of your visions and how you create a collective energy field for us to gather around and kind of have a sense of who we are in relationship to love, compassion, and caring.
Wow, that's a big, big quest. I
And
think
you walk it each step in every day.
I think part of it is the energy and the intention and the authenticity that you hold in your heart and in your consciousness. I think it's also related to the words you use. That
Right.
language words carry energy, and the words we use matter, and what we carry in our heart matters, because energetically we're communicating a way of being or an essence, and we can help to repattern the field through words that speak to your heart instead of just your head.
Right.
So those hard-edged linear words, diagnosis, for example, is a very harsh word in contrast to grace or beauty. There's just a different way of paying attention. And that's in my latest book, that Unitary Caring Science. I talk about veritas, because underneath caritas, which is the caring and love, and the 10 caritas processes that are those universals of human caring. But in that book, the one you're showing, I bring the word veritas and praxis together. And by that, I mean veritas means truth. And it captures those eternal, timeless values that cannot be commodified, cannot be put a price on. They're priceless. And they define our core moral foundation. And I went back through the Greek origin praxis, and there are two ingredients to the Aristotelian foundation of praxis. One is the core values, these eternal values, veritas, truths, of values. And the second one is the morality, a moral foundation. So in that book, and even some of my little videos I've done, I talk about these values of love, of course, of dignity, of compassion, of integrity, of beauty, of grace. They're of hope. There's just these other dimensions that are core of who we are and what guides us with our intentions. We may not be conscious of it, but if we can bring it up to our consciousness, and all I do when I speak to nurses, I'm just a mirror. I'm just mirroring back to them what they're doing, but they don't know it. They don't know what they're doing. They have no idea of the power of what they're doing, how they're touching the life of another person in a given moment. And all I do with my language and my writing and my presence and my presentations is I just want them to see the power that they hold in their energy field and their love and compassion and their gifts that transcend all the diagnosis and all the disease and negative treats and energy. They are there helping to sustain the humanity of that person and themselves and human dignity, and helping them to access, to come back into right relation with Source for their own healing. So that intention and the combination of consciousness, evolving consciousness, energetic patterns, presence, authenticity, and allowing, being open to allow for something like a miracle or mystery to evolve. And that gets back to those micro practices of pausing, of breathing, of realizing the miracle of just breathing by opening up space for something new to happen when you stop and breathe that void between the breaths, and you open up that space to be authentically present. That's where you're touching the life of another person through your silence. And even in your silence, or even if you have a voice, your silence rings through the voice. When you have that consciousness, you're still opening up space, even though you may be using your voice. And of course, Nightingale talked about the human voice. It's very powerful. So all of this kind of converges into a new reality for us. I think we have to create a new reality for nursing. And in my book, Postmodern Nursing, I did years ago, I was positioning, I had that whole energetic field of Alex Gray.
Yes.
And it was like a preface of this prophetic kind of visionary future, that we will be in that spirit realm much more intentionally, helping other people and ourselves to heal, because nurses' biggest task will be to go back to the healing role that we've always had across time. In those ancient indigenous practices, the wisdom traditions, become wisdom workers. We would have ancient knowledge. We might have knowledge of these herbs and plants and, these natural home remedies almost that we can go back to for old and new reasons, which now are converging with science and technology.
Right.
So it's just an interesting combination of a synergy of unknowns that are all swirling. It's like a quantum soup waiting to set.
Well, it seems to me that we're spiraling back to a new beginning. Like there's an ending and there's a new beginning. And that the new beginning is an integration of what you've talked about in all your books. But I see, as we slip through the veil to the future, we're going to have deeper abilities to be present, deeper abilities to be caring, deeper abilities to tap into the power of healing.
And distant healing too. The power of distant healing, even with this cyberspace that we're in, we'll be able to use the higher vibration consciousness as distant healing, because everything's connected.
Yes. So I was wondering, at the end of your talk, I know we only have a few minutes, I brought my singing bowl.
Oh.
Wondering if I was going to just tap it, if you would lead us in like a centering, but centering us into where we are in this moment, but as a spirit guide, bringing us into the future.
Wow. Well, I have to get centered myself here. Well, I think you do a really deep breath of releasing and breathing in a new possibility of who we are and what we are yet to be and become, is just waiting for us to step into as we open up space in our hearts, and in that pause between the breaths, allowing spirit to speak to and through us as we become a chalice and an instrument for ourselves and for others to have prophecies and unknowns and mystery that we can channel into our world for the healing of the planet in small and grand ways, in micro ways as well as in macro ways, that we radiate out into this infinite field of universal love. And in this new beginning, this new opening that is a spiraling and taking us rather than us taking it, we're able to reunite all this ancient knowledge that's been lost across time and lost in human consciousness. And it's coming back into our consciousness now through those that have passed on, the ancestors, and those that are waiting to come are now speaking to us to help us to evolve. And there will be many now who are leaving us to prepare the way at a higher level. So this is part of that sacred circle of life and death and the sacredness of being here now in this moment. So God bless.
Oh, Jean, thank you so much. And I want to say how much I appreciate you for just being in the world and being a visionary. And the truth is, you have touched millions of nurses' lives. And I've had the honor to travel with you and be with you and watch you walk into a room with that presence that I think is a future self that we all can create. You are, in a way, a deeply evolved spiritual being that has spent your life in the pure intention of creating this space for all of us as nurses. And as we follow you and listen to you, you have created a way, you've created a portal for us to walk through forward. Your voice, with you holding the light, with you returning and mirroring back to us the beauty that you see in each one of the nurses that you speak to. And what I've seen you do that's been the most remarkable thing is just when I watch you stand in front of the room and look into the eyes and feel the presence of those that are there, there's an ascension of human consciousness. And it's been one of the most powerful things I've seen. And I just thank you so much. And I appreciate so much for your leadership and the purity of your work.
Well, I'm so honored to be part of this with you, Mary, and you're paving the way now by offering these sessions with all these nurse leaders around the world. And as I've always said, from Rumi, I see my beauty in you. So you're beautiful, and thank you for doing this work.
Thank you so much. This has been a great time. I appreciate it.